but he's especially... Well, Peter, you might be the first person on this planet that has ever shut me up for this long. Good old Heraclitus, I tell you, that wild and crazy guy.
If I came to you and I gave you $10,000 for 20% of the company.
Deal.
Yeah.
So, is that a verbal?
Younger than us, sorry to say, Joseph.
What, younger than 20?
Joe, we're just trying to help you because clearly you've lost control of the conversation.
You know what? With all due respect, I never had control of the situation. Doesn't mean I'm overgone. What doesn't kill me makes you stronger.
Look at you! You are insane!
How did I do that?
You're insane.
I am a creative. I am a creator. I am an idealist. I am naive. I am hopeful. I am innocent. I strive in a world unlimited by imagination, and I wither in a world constrained by narrow-mindedness, short-sightedness, and negativity. I've had a full career in marketing, advertising, consulting, teaching, and most recently hosting a talk show. In this time, I've never been short of ideas, big ideas, bold ideas, and oftentimes shit ideas. When I've pitched them, I've done so with a full heart and all the joy, excitement, and anticipation in the world, often to be kicked to the curb with "my concern is." It's oftentimes the very first thing to come out of a prospective or even actual client's mouth. My concern is are my 3 worst words. I'm also not a fan of, do you have a version in Spanish language? And our payment terms are 180 days. The sound you just heard is the complete and utter deflation of passion, and with it a zest and a zeal to explore, innovate, break new ground, and charter new paths. A world built and based on a deficiency model is not a world I want to actively participate in. Instead, I choose to align myself with appreciative inquiry, just like my guest tonight, Peter Katz. I want to challenge you. The next time someone's laying it all on the line for you, giving you everything they have, literally putting it all out for you, instead of those 3 ugly words, consider replacing them with these 4 beautiful words. What I love is... Start with what you love, what you really love. Focus on the strengths and the magic in the idea or the pitch. Build on that. Protect it. The other stuff is just fluff. The devil in the details. It can be worked out. It will be worked out. It's filler at best and an annoyance at worst. It's a transient variable that distracts and detracts. It is temporary. What isn't temporary, however, is the idea, the story, and the spark, the creative catalyst that has the potential to remain, to endure, to last forever, to be truly timeless. Also, positivity isn't just another word. It's more fun, isn't it? It's positively contagious, and it has the superpower to transform. Choose it first, choose it next, choose it always. Unless, of course, you have any concerns. In which case, you know what you can do with those concerns, don't you? Well, now it is time to get into the main attraction, Mr. Peter Katz, and a little bit of background on him. Peter Katz is a Juno Award and Canadian Screen Award nominated singer-songwriter who has spent the past 15 years touring internationally. He has been described by many of his fans and speaking clients as a thunderbolt for the soul. To date, his music has been streamed over 5 million times, and his music videos have over 20 million views on YouTube. Peter's music has also been featured on several TV shows and movies like Lethal Weapon, Rain, Signed, Sealed, and Delivered, Felicity, For Your Consideration, Hello, Goodbye, Alias, Heartland, and more. as well as on CBC Television's 2016 Rio Olympics and Paralympics coverage. Peter is also one of Canada's most in-demand speakers, being called on to give his highly customized keynote concerts to countless companies and organizations. Over the past 12 months, Peter's impressive move to virtual has seen him perform to over 50,000 people virtually around the world, including being asked to address the House of Commons of Canada and the Ivy School of Business. It's pretty impressive, and so is this. Please watch this little video interlude.
When the pandemic first hit, I saw all of my work disappear. I had like a year's worth of bookings. Everything was wiped from the schedule. I had exactly $2,000 left in my bank account, and I bought that camera with the last of my money, and then I locked myself in my basement, and I had a really clear vision that I wanted to create a product virtually that was not just like a lesser version of a live performance. If you look at the live streams that I did before this pandemic, they were super low quality. I had to learn all of these new skill sets in order to follow through on this vision. I break it up into 4 things. So make sure that my cameras are working. I make sure my audio is working, that I've got levels that aren't clipping. Make sure both of my computers are set up, all the switching software is ready to go. Make sure my internet is hardwired, and boom, I'm good to go. I want them to be surprised by the audio or video quality. It just like something that just kind of makes them go, oh, something different is about to happen here. Most of the work I'm doing is on the speaking side, and people are bringing me in, whether that's the House of Commons of the Government of Canada, or whether that's, a group of people on the front lines that have been saving lives, and I'm being brought in to lift their spirits and make them feel like that's a tall order, So I want to honor the people that are on the other side of that screen, and I want to give them something that's going to inspire, delight, move them, and that's my job.
He's creative, incredibly innovative.
It was an hour that we will never forget.
Just transformed the lives of 130 employees.
Peter, you have inspired us, you have centered us, you have given back to us in a way that I don't think any of us knew we needed.
Peter, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So great to be here.
It's the weirdest thing, just looking at that video and then, just seeing you on the show. I just have goosebumps, and I'm honestly, I haven't stopped listening to your album all day. I think you might be my new favorite artist.
Well, that's very nice to hear. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Now, Peter, there is so much to talk about and to discuss. But before we do, I just see in the comments that there are lots of birthdays today. Manif, who is one of our regulars. No, that's the wrong one. What I wanted to say is it's Manif's wife's birthday. So I want to wish her a happy birthday. May 18th is just a great day because, as you saw earlier, it's my daughter's birthday, Amber, as well. So I have to, you're giving to me and I'm taking from you, but I have a special request, which is, would you consider performing a song for my daughter?
Absolutely. I'd love to. Let me just grab the guitar here. I happen to have guitars around me at all times, so always.
I love that.
Song. It's funny, whenever, when human parties used to be a thing in person, people would always say like, I don't want to ask you to play. I'm like, it's literally my favorite thing in the world. Don't be shy to ask me to play. I love doing it. So, no, I just got to pick the right song for Amber. You said she's turning 20.
Yes.
So, I think I'm going to play her this song, 2020. That's a special, that's like the start of a whole new phase of life. And, I'm going to play her this song. This is a song called Paper Thin. It's from the new record. And, it's a song about, like, none of us wish to go through hard times. Like, we don't wish that on ourselves. We don't wish that on people we love. But it's in those hard times that we actually really figure out what we're made of. We actually do our greatest learning and our greatest growing. So thinking about Amber entering her 20s and definitely some challenges and things that will be ahead. This is my little birthday wish that she can see those challenges as opportunities to do some of that growing that's ahead. So happy birthday, Amber. This is a song called Paper Thin. I can barely even talk about it now, but I don't know any other way out. I have pushed myself so hard for all these years. Still it's not clear what for, and all the roads I drive no longer lead me home. I could fill an ocean with all that I don't know, and I was safer in the insides of those walls. But that's not all there is. I know everything, it falls apart. Just wasn't ready for life to hit that hard, and like the narrow space between the start and the end, or the mirror that is now and then, or the insides that are showing through my skin. The paper thin. All right, this is the important part right here. And when your biggest fear, it ends up coming true, that's when you find out what you have inside of you. And I am braver than I ever could have known. These days have shown that to me. Ooh, I know everything falls apart. Ooh, just wasn't ready for life to hit that hard, and like the narrow space between the start and the end, or the mirror that is now and then, or the insides that are showing through my skin. The paper thin. I feel my eyes adjusting to the dark, and I can see the light of far-off stars. If I let myself get far enough away from the city of our lives, and like the whole night never really have, I'm getting older. It's not all in my hands, but I will not be afraid of the insides that are showing through my skin. I'm paper thin. I'm paper thin now. I'm paper thin now. I'm paper thin.
Wow, amazing, unbelievable. You know what? The crowd is the crowd is going crazy.
Thank you.
You see,
Happy birthday, Amber.
That was beautiful, and it's one of my favorite songs on the album, and it was beautiful. And your setup is incredible. Everything about it. I mean, the lighting, the sound, the transitions. I'm going to be coming to you for lessons. Let me tell you, because I'm sitting in here with my $20 Walmart ring light. It's been, well, I got a good Rodecaster mic here as well. Peter, that was amazing. Thank you. You made, no doubt, her birthday very special.
My great pleasure. It really is one of my greatest pleasures to be asked to play, and so I'm always really happy to do it. And I went really deep in figuring out a great virtual setup, so that I could, try to do justice and play these songs in the way that I felt like they deserved to be played. So I'm glad that it's well received. It was definitely a dark time in March and early April 2020, learning all of this stuff and, pulling my hair out, trying to figure out how I could have great audio and video over the internet. But it certainly has paid off, and it's been amazing. This is my third. I gave 2 keynotes right before this, and it's like you can kind of fly all around the world and be with all kinds of people. It's kind of an amazing thing. There really is a silver lining to all of this.
We hear that saying a lot. Certainly, I've heard many guests utter these words, which is, life doesn't happen to you, life happens for you. Mm-hmm. I remember Joe Delagrave being on the show, he is a bronze medal winner. He's a Paralympian. And I remember him saying that he wouldn't want it any other way. It's crazy, someone who's been confined to a wheelchair, but he wouldn't want life any other way than he has right now, because this is his life, this is his path, this is his journey, and he's become this light, this leader, as well. And when we think about what's happened, this is your life now. This is your life. Is it in terms of who you've become, your becoming, your transformation? Do you feel like you're in a better place now compared to where you were at the end of 2019?
It's one of those things where I tread really lightly when I talk about it, because there's been so much hardship for people, like loss of life and all kinds of things, and for me personally, like my family lives in the U.S., I'm in Canada, so I haven't hugged my mother in a year and a half, and my nephew and niece are growing up, so there's been so many challenges and so many things, that so much suffering, and at the same time, there has been an incredible amount of growth for me in my life. As I said, March 2020, I gave my last keynote on March 12th. And I remember I was being introduced. I was speaking to one of the major banks here in Canada, and I was speaking to the business analyst department. And I was on right after lunch. And the person introducing me had to legally inform all of the people that were in attendance that on the 5th floor of this building where all the business analysts worked, that there had been a suspected COVID case. And that was my introduction. So I walk out on stage, and they had these giant gallons of hand sanitizer, and everybody's just covering themselves in it. And I realized, I was like, my life is about to change. And, my entire living is based on, live concerts, in-person keynotes, and I also do this mentoring work with teenagers every summer. So everything I do is in person, and everything was canceled, as I said in that video. So it was a very, just shocking time, but everybody was experiencing a shocking time, not just me. But I had a really, for whatever reason, I'm the kind of person that just kind of jumps into action, and I almost immediately, I bought this camera that I'm looking into with the last of my money, and I locked myself in my basement for about a month, and I said, okay, this is what's happening now. This is how I'm going to connect with people. And if I'm going to connect with people, I want it to be of the highest possible quality that can possibly be, so I can, reach people's hearts as much as possible and not have the technology get in the way. And I just had this vision in my mind. I was like, what if I could create like Netflix, but the guy's talking back to you in real time? Because people say like they're screened out or they're zoomed out or they're tired of looking at a screen, but they will sit in front of Netflix or whatever streaming provider and watch screens for hours. It's just that they don't like, they get tired of bad content, which is what most Zoom meetings are. So I was like, well, what if I could create compelling content, where you weren't thinking about the audio was great, the video was great, and you're using the medium for what it is, I always use this example of, if you want to, like, the dumbest thing you could do if you were trying to capture a play would be to like take a camera and put it in the audience and just have a static camera watching a play. Like, that would be a terrible experience. But if you have multi-cameras and you can, see the actors up close, then all of a sudden you can experience the play in a way that you never would have experienced it. So I kind of wanted to approach the idea of a keynote that way and a concert that way of like, okay, I don't want to just take a camera and just like put it in front of a keynote. I want to use the technology in a way that I can engage with people in a new way. And I can, I can talk really intimately and be right up in somebody's ear, and I can get close, and I can, I can do all kinds of things using the medium. So all that to say, it's really paid off. I've there was a deep dip in bookings for, the early months, but by the time September hit, it has been, every month since September has been the best month I've ever had in my business, every single one. And what that really means is I've been able to reach tens of thousands of people. We just did the tally the other day. It's we're over like 55,000 people. And that never would have been possible if I was on airplanes trying to reach all of those people. And I wouldn't have been able to do 3 things in one day and do a keynote. I just did a keynote for like, I think there was, between 8,000 and 10,000 students around the globe, and then I'm here with you. And then earlier today I was, speaking, to another district, and like none of those things would have been possible in the old format. So,
and of course you can, and of course you can sleep in your bed tonight.
And I could sleep in my bed tonight. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
which is also nice.
The example you gave earlier, I mean, case in point was Hamilton. I was blown away by the production of Hamilton that I saw on Disney. I guess it was Disney Plus. And so much so that, when my wife and I actually saw Hamilton, we were a little underwhelmed. We were a little underwhelmed because there was so much hype going into it. And our seats probably weren't the best seats in the house, because if they were the best seats in the house, we probably would have had to mortgage, our house in order to get a second mortgage. And for whatever reason, I watched this production on Disney, and I could feel the spit, coming from the different characters. It was exactly as you said. I felt like I was on stage. I felt like I was there. I felt like I was transported. I felt like I was transformed. And it's exactly that point. In my opinion, and this you may have a different, may disagree. For me, it was better than it was better than in person. Now, I will say that with a massive caveat, because there's so much else to in person. I'm certainly not saying this should ever permanently replace in person, but in terms of the experience, in terms of the quality, for me, it wasn't even close.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake to sort of, like to try to compare them. Really, like I just see this as this is a new format. Like back in the day, there was just plays, and then the camera was invented, and then there was TV and movies, and then people kind of really got into that medium and started doing all kinds of creative things, and maybe then there was also CGI and all kinds of other things that you can do. And so I really feel like, this is not a keynote like I normally give. This is not an in-person concert like I normally give. This is a virtual keynote or a virtual keynote concert or a virtual concert. And there are things about this medium that are unique to this medium that make this medium compelling and strong. And I think it's our job to, not not spend too much energy lamenting what we can't do, and instead focusing on, well, look at all that we can do and what is available to us. I mean, Joseph, I'm assuming that, doing a, hour-long variety interview show was not on your radar, 16 months ago or whatever it was. And all of a sudden you learned all these new things and you're connecting with people. And, like, you tell me, like, how much learning have you done through this time?
Oh, it's been incredible, and it's been a joy. It's every mistake I make is a joy, because I get to improve on it, and I get to riff on it, and I get to triangulate against it. And I was saying to someone today that if you ask me to describe myself and what I do for a living, I will tell you I'm a talk show host, proudly, proudly, and I don't call myself a consultant anymore. I don't call myself a keynote speaker. I don't call myself a 5-time author. I am a talk show host. And I realized that this is what I was meant to do. This is what I was put on this earth to do. And I've learned so much about myself, how to listen, how to become an active listener. But, what you and I share in common, and you've, I have to blame you now, because I am the latest disciple in this new concept called appreciative inquiry. I'm a little bit of a geek. Appreciative inquiry. This is the most, first of all, I went to the Wikipedia page, and I got to tell you, like, I'm not sure I understood any of it. And I tried to go through it and understand it. Before I go into more, from your understanding, and I know you're new to it as well, what is appreciative inquiry?
Well, so I'm studying under John Berghoff and the exchange approach, which is, it's all based on appreciative, and I'll say appreciative inquiry. That's just the way I say it. So it's all based on appreciative inquiry, but there's some facilitation techniques and some, things that are attached to it. But, the example that John uses that I think is kind of a great way of looking at it is, there was a unnamed, well, we won't name them, like a big US airline that had like the worst record with their baggage. They were like losing bags left, right, and center, and it was terrible. And, the habitual way of looking at it was to say, like, okay, we have a baggage problem. And okay, if there's a baggage problem, then, people need to be fired and things need to be reckoned with. And, who are we going to, get mad at, and how are we going to solve this problem? But it's kind of, you're starting from this negative lens. And when you go through like an appreciative inquiry lens, instead it would be like, okay, what is our dream for the future? And it's like, well, we want to create an unbelievable post-flight landing experience for all of our customers. And all of a sudden, as soon as you frame that through that lens of like, an unbelievable, inspiring landing experience, then all of a sudden it becomes generative. It becomes, ideas start flowing, and you're like, well, what does an amazing landing experience look like? And what ideas can we come up with to try to create that? And, there's just such a greater energy and thrust behind that than looking at it through this lens of, it's a problem, which is, one woman in the course that I'm taking, it's like a kind of year-long training that I'm doing. She's put it so beautifully. She said, when you start through the lens of a problem, you create a group of commiserators. And when you go through the lens of a solution, you create a group of collaborators. And to me, that really just sums it up of how do we reframe things so that we're in the realm of creating, of possibility, of dreaming, versus being weighted down by the past and what went wrong and who did what. So I'm just so energized about this. And truthfully, as soon as I started opening my mouth and talking about it with, my speaking clients, they got energized about it. And now, everybody wants to do this work with me. And it's just like been this eye-opening, amazing thing. And it's really just so aligned with my core value. I've always been this kind of eternal optimist, and, not kind of rose-colored glasses, but just really believing in the human spirit, and that we do all kinds of bad things as human beings, but at our essence, we all want the same basic things. You know, we want food on the table. We want our loved ones to be taken care of. We all want the same basic things. And I feel like part of my life's work as an artist has been trying to reconnect people back to that basic human selves. And from that basic human selves, we make better decisions. We can dream up a better future. We can create the things that we want to create for ourselves. And I don't just believe that that's possible and you know, again, walk around with rose-colored glasses. Like, I've seen it happen. And so I'm just so excited about taking this approach and bringing that into our work environments. And I feel like this is exactly what the world needs right now, because we need to reimagine what work looks like. You know, I talk to, you know, CEOs, I talk to managers, I talk to people, and they're like, you know, we used to just worry about, you know, Q1 profits and what's the strategy. And now I have to think about like my employees' kids' mental health or my employees' mental health, or I have to somehow get people connected to each other and feeling like they're actually on a team, even though they don't see each other. And there's all these new challenges. And I feel like appreciative inquiry and this exchange approach is like on the cutting edge of what we need.
I mean, I love that. And, I'm using my own advice, right? I'm starting with what I love about that is, I mean, what I love about that is everything. I found there are actually 5 principles associated with appreciative inquiry. How about that? I'll use when in Rome. There and the principles are constructionist, simultaneity. I think that's right. Simultaneity. Yeah, exactly. Poetic, anticipatory, and positive. And I think that it is all, I mean, my show is about hope, positivity, and optimism. There are so many things. I just want to dive deeper into this and also bring it into everything that I do. But it was the word positivity that ultimately, whether we look at the glass half full, however we want to talk about it, this is, at the end of the day, what we need. You know, no matter what's the old saying, when life hands you lemons, turn it into lemonade. And I think I'm sure the applications are just endless.
Yeah, and you know, like I feel like positivity has this bad rap. Like if you're positive, then you're not seeing reality, and I just disagree with that. You know, I think our human nature is actually to take care of each other, to be loving, and you know, one of the premises that I base that on is, you know, when all is well, you know, when we have food, when there's peace, where there's no bombs, like when we're secure, then we create art, you know, our imaginations roam, we like all kinds of beautiful things blossom and flourish, and you know, we give to each other generously. Like all of these things happen when those things are in place. And so, and of course, when those things are not in place, then, you know, then bad things happen. But people they're not bad, you know, they're just trying to get some of their basic things covered, and they're desperate, and they're exasperated, and they're lost, or they haven't, you know, had, you know, they're lacking love, whatever it might be. But I've done a lot of work in the realm of forgiveness. It kind of happened unexpectedly. I was driving in my car one day, and I heard this interview with a man by the name of Michael Berg, and Michael was being interviewed because his son Nick had been killed by al-Zarqawi, who was one of the sort of heads of Al-Qaeda. And on the day that Michael was being interviewed, the U.S. Army had killed al-Zarqawi, the person that had killed his son. And in this interview, Michael said that he was saddened at the loss of life of another human being, even though that other human being had killed his son, and that he didn't believe in revenge, that he'd rather find forgiveness in his heart and try to spread that around rather than carry on this cycle of hatred. And I was just kind of blown away by this reaction. And later on in the interview, I found out that Michael was, called a traitor and was shot at. I mean, people tried to take his life because his ideas were so threatening. And I said, no, this guy like has the answer that we all need to hear. And I wrote this song called Forgiveness. And anyways, it found its way to him. And he's now one of, a dear friend. And I've gone to all of these, forgiveness events with him. And one of those events that I was at, there was this man who was there whose son was also killed in a break and enter. And, the person that had killed his son went to jail, and this man started writing to this man. And at first he was like, I don't want to hear from you, go to hell. But he persisted, and he kept writing to him. And eventually they started a correspondence. And, fast forward 20 years, and that father petitioned for this guy to get released from jail. And now that guy comes over for Christmas dinner, and they go to schools and they talk together, and they're the best of friends, and they talk about forgiveness. So like that, no soul is lost, I got goosebumps because I'm like, that's actually what we're capable of human beings. That's positivity is not, an illusion. It's what's possible. I think when we actually drop into the best of our human selves, when we grant forgiveness, when we give people opportunity, when we stop and we listen and we open our hearts, like all of that is possible. So anyways, I'm going to come down from my soapbox because I know that was a long rant, but I'm clearly really passionate about it.
No, I mean, it's hardly a rant at all, but it's powerful, right? I mean, you can't even take a saying like "to err is human, to forgive divine." This transcends everything. And I think you said something, I mean, Manif says, love wins. Happy I could be here today. Peter just gained a new fan as well. But you spoke about possibility as a positivity as a possibility, as a capability. We are capable of incredible things. And when we think about that element of forgiveness, there's probably not a single person that wouldn't struggle with that story. But that is the kind of story that is an eternal shining light. That light can never be dimmed. It can never be snuffed out, because it just absolutely will break through the darkest darkness. And quite frankly, the reason is because it was born in the darkest darkness, so it understands darkness. You mentioned how you created a song, and one of the things that I think you are immensely talented in is what I would call crossover. Specifically, how you've crossed over being a singer, songwriter, and a keynote speaker. The common thread, the bridge is storytelling. But I would love for you to talk a little bit about that crossover and how you've been able to create this storytelling bridge between the speaker. I'm sure Brent Menswar as well. You guys are in a class of your own where you are not presenters, you are speakers, and you're not even speakers, you are storytellers. I would love for you to talk a little bit about that space that you live in right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 10 years ago, I didn't even know what a speaker was. I mean, I knew that existed, but it wasn't something I was interested in. It wasn't anything I knew anything about. But, I've been touring singer-songwriter for 15 years, and I would always tell stories at my shows. That was just, people would come for the songs, but they would also come just as much for the stories and the in-between part of the experience. And, so I kind of spent years and years and years honing not just the musical performance, but also what does it mean to stand in front of an audience and thread things together and build a set that has a beginning and middle and an end and has its peaks and its valleys and and anyway, so I guess kind of naturally, somebody just asked me if I would give a keynote at their event. And, I had never really thought of that, but I was like, okay. And I sort of, strung some stories together and gave a keynote. And then I ended up doing this mentoring work with youth out in Alberta. And there was, a whole bunch of teachers there, and they were like, hey, we've seen your concerts. We see the work you do with youth. You should turn that into a keynote. So I created a keynote for youth. And then, I just sort of started getting into this world where I was, telling some stories and, playing some songs. But I kind of always felt like there were these islands. Like I could play the song at a world-class level. I could tell the story at a world-class level, but the actual like speaking part of it, I was still learning that part. So I really kind of threw myself into like, okay, there's this whole other medium here, and I don't need to worry about the song part. I don't need to worry about the storytelling part, but I need to figure out how can I serve each of the specific audiences that I'm speaking to. I need to do something different if I'm speaking to a group of financial advisors or a group of healthcare workers or a group of students or a group of government officials, whatever it might be. And so I really threw myself into that. And I think the moment where things really kind of came into focus was I was asked to give a keynote at this conference for 450 entrepreneurs. And, they were most of them were in the tech space, but this was really like my first proper full hour keynote to entrepreneurs. And I had this realization that like, oh, entrepreneurs and artists, we're kind of the same breed. There's no set paycheck, no set hours. You're doing something that you're really passionate about. You have no idea if it's going to work. You're all in. There's just so much overlap. So I built this talk customized for them, and I felt 450 people just lean in. And I was like, oh, it felt like everything I had done in my life had made me that I could be like so perfectly of service in that moment. And the real kind of light bulb moment was afterwards. People are walking up to me and they're in tears and they're emotional and they're hugging me and they're sharing their stories and they're telling me all kinds of things. And I was like, oh, this is exactly what happens after my music shows. And for 15 years, I thought the only way that I could do what I do was in this format called a concert. And then I gave that keynote and I realized, oh, it's not limited to a concert. It can also be in this format where I actually only played 3 songs for an hour and I talked the rest of the time, but the sense of connection and the sense of intimacy and vulnerability, and in some ways it was like even better because in the music business, sometimes, you have to kind of play the game of the music business and, is your single on the radio and all, there's this whole like game to it and this whole like coolness factor. Whereas in the speaking world, I got to just be my totally earnest, kind of kimonos open self. And I kind of loved that. And then, to kind of circle back to the appreciative inquiry stuff, I'm like, oh, there's this whole other format too, where I'm doing this facilitation work. And of course I'm playing music and of course I'm telling stories, but now my job in that format is in some ways to be the guide from the side versus the sage from the stage. And so now, I'm not my job in that instance is not to be the star, but to have everybody else walk away feeling like the star, and I'm really excited about the idea of, people walking away from interacting with me, not thinking like, oh, he's so amazing, but thinking, oh, I'm so amazing. And so, yeah, I guess there's this continuum when I think about it of realizing that, life is an opportunity to grow wiser and wiser and wiser. We could just grow old and that can just happen. But I think if we kind of keep our eyes open, to connect back to Paper Thin, like if we see our moments of biggest challenge as opportunities to learn, then life can be this journey towards greater and greater wisdom. And as we gather that wisdom, we become more and more versatile and more like chameleon, but in a wonderful way, that we can take these skills that we're acquiring and we can apply them in all kinds of different ways. And that's just been so energizing and exciting and empowering to me.
So wait, you didn't mention that you were a poet as well. Well, of course, you have to be a poet if you are a singer, songwriter, storyteller. Manif says, I agree, both are creators and adventurers, talking about performing on stage and performing as a speaker. And Anna says, very similar, love the parallel. Stephen says, very fast hour. Manif says, true, encore. And Anna adds, seriously, I can't believe how quickly the time has gone. It has flown. And I will try and slow it down just for the next 11 minutes or so. But there were a few things that you said there that I just wanted to kind of recap on, Peter. The first is, I realized that you flipped the script. You absolutely, what really happened was, I'm sure you've seen this as well. Before, you were performing an entire set with little intersperse. You called it the in-betweens. The in-betweens were the little vignettes, the little stories. You flipped it completely on its head. Now you're telling stories, and the in-betweens are the 2 or 3 songs. It's like The Simpsons. The Simpsons was born from the Tracy Ullman show, exactly like that. But there was another thing that I also loved about your story, and that's when you're performing on stage as a rock star, as you are, there's almost a tendency to take those songs for granted, to say, why didn't he play the song, the cover song, or the expectation, the familiarity? When you go to a different audience, where, first of all, you are a little bit more vulnerable, it's not your comfort zone, it's not generally your wheelhouse, but you're playing to an audience where you pretty much could sing, quite frankly, Bar Bar Black Sheep, and they will be leaning in because it's so different. It's not what they're used to. It's not what they expect. And there's something magical about reversal of roles. So you flip the switch, you reverse the roles, and the result was pure magic.
Yeah, that was one of the one of the things that blew my mind when I got into speaking. I was like, playing 150, 200 shows a year as a musician, for years I was like, had a bucket of glue, putting up posters and, in a van, with other sweaty humans, driving 8 hours a day, sleeping on floors. We worked hard to get people out to our shows. And I, was monitoring ticket sales and, doing all the things. With my speaking gigs, I just walk out on stage and sometimes there's 2,000 people sitting there, and I didn't post a tweet or promote anything, and they're all just sitting there. Now there's pros and cons to the situation, because of course, when I walk out on stage as Peter Katz, a musician, everybody there is there. They know why they're there. They bought a ticket. They want to be there. They, ideally they love the music and they're there for a reason. It's a hard ticket sale versus, when I walk out on stage and it's, Monday morning and they all have to be there because it's a company meeting. But I just love the idea that I can kind of hijack this space where the expectation is actually kind of low, but I treat it with the exact same expectation of, an audience that's paid, 30, 40, whatever dollars to buy a ticket to come see me. I treat it with that same energy, that same intensity. And I just think that with my background as an artist and as a touring, you develop such a deep respect and appreciation for your audience. I really think about the energy of all of the people, that have come together to be in the audience, who've hired babysitters and they've given up their Friday nights and they've spent their hard-earned paychecks, all so that they could be there, not to watch me fail, but so that I can take them somewhere, so I can give them something. And so I see my speaking audience as the same way, as wow, I have the privilege to be with these people for this hour. I have the privilege of the microphone, of the stage. How can I serve them. And I love that they're often very caught by surprise because they're just not expecting it.
You are the poet, you are the singer, you are the songwriter, you are the storyteller, you are the respectful hijacker. I'm going to start calling you now. And Manif actually says you should be an author too, because you should write a book talking about absorbing experience and applying them. Just captivated me. I think as great as this is, I would be remiss if I didn't make sure that people remember that you are a singer-songwriter. You have a new album called City of Our Lives. And as I said, I've already posted the link to the Spotify link in the comments. I'll do it again. And I'm also going to post another link as well, which is your new single called Calm Within the Storm. And this is amazing as well, Peter, because this is like another interesting crossover, isn't it? Which is it's a single that you wrote as a companion to Dr. Robin Hanley Defoe's book of the same name. So I would love for you to tell us about the album, tell us about the single, and please perform one more song for us of your choice.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. Yeah, so the album is called City of Our Lives, and it was a major endeavor. You know, I've typically been a sort of folkier singer-songwriter, but I kind of fell in love with pop music. And again, we talk about, you know, transferring different formats, and I realized, you know, I had this bias against pop music, but then I realized that a great song is a great song is a great song. And I wanted to kind of, you know, dance on the same floor that, you know, I used to be crying on. And so I thought I'd make an album that had the same heart and soul and commitment to the lyrics and to the song, but presented in a way that, again, as a respectful hijacker, where people could almost feel it in their bodies first, and then they would get the message afterwards if they paid attention to the lyrics. So I'm so proud of the album. It was a you know, the biggest musical risk I've ever taken. Definitely put myself way out there, and incredibly proud of it. And then Calm Within the Storm, my friend Dr. Robin Hanley Defoe, she's you know, a brilliant resiliency researcher, and she sent me an advance copy of this book. I actually read it on a long hiking trip, and I had it on a phone. It was just a PDF, and I would wake up every morning and lie by the water and read this book, you know, tears streaming down my face. Just an amazing book and guide for all of us on our connecting to our resiliency and developing it. And she reached out to me asking if I would write a theme song for it, which was, you know, obviously a very novel idea, not anything I'd ever heard of. And you know, she told me about how her, you know, I asked for some clues, you know, and she told me that, like, you know, how her mother had loved the piano, and, you know, she sent me some references of songs that she loved, and she said she wanted like a distinct melody that people could hear that melody and think of her book. And so I sat down at the piano and wrote this song, and maybe that's a song that I should play. It's brand new, and it'd be kind of cool because I haven't really ever gotten to play it live, because it's not part of my talk. So this is kind of a world premiere. So yeah, I'd be happy to play that one. But I'll need you'll have to kill time for a second while I move over to the piano.
Oh, sure. I mean, you know, I can even find some music as well if you like. But you know what? I'm not going to play any music. Killing time is easy when you're having fun and when you're inspired. And I have to tell you, boy, has the time flown for me tonight. I've just had a big grin on my face the whole evening, and I want to remind you as we are playing out. In fact, I don't even need to kill time, because the one thing that I didn't do is get to embarrass Mr. Peter Katz with some of the fun facts about him, because it was such a beautiful conversation. I had to leap straight into it. So, you know, I didn't get to tell you, and you didn't get to hear the story of how he fell from a 100-foot cliff and survived. And this is actually a real life image of him falling from the cliff. I didn't get to tell you that. I didn't get to tell you about the fact that he played Seymour in Little Shop of Horrors at summer camp when he was 12, nor did we get to hear the story of how he's basically become a sweaty hippie. He's a respectful hijacker, a sweaty hippie. None of those stories. How's that for killing time, Peter?
That was impressive. And I love the dedication that you put into those graphics.
It took me all of at least 3 minutes. So, thank you for recognizing the sweat.
That was amazing. You just gave me a laugh. So this really is I've never, other than playing it for Robin, I haven't actually played this song live. So I'm going to give it a go. But this has been a real pleasure, Joseph. So here we go. This is Calm Within the Storm.
Every tear and every bruise and every pain, I've been hurricane. Every wreckage in the wind will remain. Every miracle, like the winter when I went off of the road, felt the darkness of the water and cold. But I decided I'm not dying alone, and her voice could carry me home to the calm within the storm that I'd been living in, and to all I had to learn. My mother tried in so many ways, telling it to me every day, until I learned on my own to say I am okay. Doesn't mean just 'cause we can carry it well that it's not a heavy load. There's a world of people that you could never tell are barely breathing now. As they're driving, they might end up off the road, probably thinking that they're dying alone. But in the dark, all that I want them to know is I can see you. 'Cause I have been you. There's a calm within the storm that you've been living in. There's a lot you're gonna learn through every hard thing. My mother always said it to me, even though I couldn't believe, till I traveled through the stormy seas. I am okay. I am okay. There's a calm within the storm that you've been living in. There's a lot you're gonna learn through every hard thing. There's a bond within our bones that's always been. My mother tried in so many ways, telling it to me every day, until I learned on my own to say I am okay.
Absolutely beautiful. Please, please find out more about his keynote concerts. Go check out peterkatzspeaks.com. I've never wanted to insist that someone stays indoors for any longer than they should, but this man needs to stay indoors for at least one more day so that you can appreciate his talent. Go check out his latest album, City of Our Lives. Listen to Calm Within the Storm, this beautiful single that you just heard performed. And Peter, one more thing, two more things, besides just saying this was everything that I hoped for and more. I always have a quote. I almost forgot all the things that I normally have, but I couldn't leave without sharing this quote. One good thing about music, when it hits you, you feel no pain. And that was Bob Marley. I wanted to leave you with that and just say you are a friend of the show's. Come back anytime you want to perform, anytime you want to speak about what's on your mind. I am a disciple. I am a follower, not just of you, but of my new favorite pastime, which of course is appreciative inquiry. And before we go, the final word always goes to Mr. Chuck Norris.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show, and if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.